The mad Greens and other proponents of the myth of climate change, knee global warming, say that the oil in the ground or under the sea will have to stay there. They want us to stop using oil, gas, coal and uranium. They want us to get all our energy from renewables such as solar and wind power and biomass, and through their power in the EU, they're forcing through policies which fit with these aims. Presumably the mad Greens want to fly to their regular climate change conferences by solar-powered jet and to use solar power to charge their little websites and their laptops. They want the big oil companies to go bust, and because of the political pressure they've exerted, numerous investment and pension fund companies are refusing to invest in oil companies. This is lunacy, and if I had a pension with a company which bowed to these loony activists, I would withdraw my money immediately. The plan is clearly to destroy oil and coal companies and their shareholders. It's obviously not yet occurred to the Greens around the world that without coal and oil there won't be enough electricity for their little diesel-powered electric cars, as well as their coal-fired laptops. I discovered, by the way, that people in electric or low-emission cars are far less likely to stop at zebra crossings than are people driving petrol or diesel engine cars. The drivers of electric cars are, it seems, so bloody pleased with themselves that they feel they can treat everyone else with disdain and contempt. The nutters are wrong for a number of reasons, which also make them dangerous. First, the climate change silliness has been developing for well over a century. The campaigners like to think they invented it recently, but pseudoscientists have been putting forward the theory that greenhouse gases could change the climate since the 19th century. Only the converts, the pseudoscientists who see the whole business as a way to become rich and famous, think the evidence is convincing. Independent scientists admit that there's no genuine evidence that the Earth is heating up. Even I was taken in a bit during the 1970s and then a little bit in the 1980s, but I no longer accept the dubious evidence as honest. Moreover, even if the Earth were getting hotter, there's no way to know if this could be caused by burning fossil fuels. There's actually more evidence that the Earth is getting cooler. Second, the alternatives to fossil fuels are frighteningly inefficient. For example, it takes more energy to make a windmill than the windmill will ever produce. So the more windmills we produce, the more energy we waste. Wind farms and solar farms are examples of entirely pointless rural vandalism, tributes to the self-serving sanctimoniousness and rank hypocrisy of an ignorant generation. Third, the clever alternatives to oil and the internal combustion engine are silly. Using food to make biofuel exacerbated the starvation problem, and the Greens have condemned hundreds of thousands, probably millions, to death by campaigning for yet more food to be turned into yet more fuel for rich people. Fourth, electricity, although very nice and useful stuff, only provides about 20% of our energy needs. The other 80% comes from nasty old gas, oil, coal and nuclear power. And it's nigh on impossible to increase that proportion. It's impossible to power ships and aeroplanes with electricity. Fifth, an awful lot of people rely on gas for their central heating and cooking. If all those people are forced to use electricity for heating and cooking, then there's going to be a great shortage of electricity because we're already using up every drop of the stuff that we can make. Sixth, renewables such as solar energy and wind power provide only a tiny proportion of our current electricity needs. We'd need to carpet the countryside with solar farms and wind farms to increase that proportion significantly. And without subsidies paid by consumers to rich landowners, the electricity produced would be horrifically expensive. Seventh, and this is a real heartbreaker for the Greens, maintaining windmills and solar panels requires more energy than the windmills and solar panels actually produce. The much-loved renewables are actually a negative source of electricity. For example, when there's no wind, the windmills have to be turned by electricity to stop them seizing up. Eighth, there's no evidence that it's a bad thing if the Earth is getting hotter. rising tides would be bad for people with beachfront properties in some parts of the world, but if there's more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, there'll probably be more plants on the planet and there'll be less starvation. Surely we can all agree that would be a good thing. Ninth, all the bizarre taxes forced upon us by things like organisations like the European Union are costing a fortune. Because of subsidies paid to rich farmers operating wind farms and solar farms, ordinary people are having to pay more for their heating, and many thousands more are dying in the cold weather. Is that supposed to be a good thing? Finally, since renewables only produce electricity, we will have to rely on a source of energy which provides, as I've said, just 20% of our current needs. And since renewables only provide a quarter of our electricity, we'll have to survive on just 5% of the energy we use at the moment. This is a bit of a problem because we can hardly cope on the energy supply we have now. So the bottom line is that we can only cope with the Greens' demands if we give up all forms of powered transport, including cars, planes and ships, and that includes cars driven by electricity, of course, because the electricity usually comes from diesel or coal, or it comes from biomass, which is the green word for burning wood, which comes from trees, in case they didn't know. We'll have to give up all forms of entertainment which require electricity. That's television, radio, computers, mobile phones, gone for a Burton. All forms of heating will have to go. All factories which make things will have to go. All mechanised farming and all fertilisers. We'll have to do away with all hospitals, medical treatments and all drug production. Of course, the real bummer is that the 5% of our energy which we have left will be needed to maintain and service our solar panels and our windmills. If there's any energy left over, we may possibly be able to boil a kettle and make a cup of hot water. There won't be any tea leaves, milk or sugar to put in the hot water. Welcome to the green world. If the Greens have their way, our planet will plunge into the biggest war of all time. The survivors will be those countries which retain fossil fuels and use them to manufacture armaments and to make and fuel bombers and tanks. The citizens of countries which decide unilaterally to rely on renewables will die. The good news is that our inability to use tractors and fertilizers will mean that most of us will starve to death, so we won't mind too much. All this is unfashionable, but it's quite accurate. The bottom line, of course, is that the climate change myth, the allegation that the Earth is hotting up or cooling down, or whatever Prince Charles says it's doing this week, is simply an excuse for the introduction of the hideous and hateful global reset being planned by a bunch of crazed billionaires in order to reorganize the world to give them more power, more control, and more money. Just remember, the self-righteous and ignorant Greens are our mortal enemy. Thank you for watching An Old Man in a Chair, and thank you for all your support and encouragement. Please copy and share the videos on Twitter and Facebook and BitChute. Let's spread the truth. If you'd like to put on a translation, that would be great. If my videos disappear, then please go to my website, www.vernoncoleman.com, where you can find out where to see the videos, and you can read transcripts. You can read transcripts of all the banned ones too. This channel has not been monetized. I haven't authorized any adverts. There'll never be any of either, and there are no ads or sponsors on my website. There'll never be any of either there too. If you'd like to see more videos from me, please subscribe to my channel, because they're not always easy to find. If you go onto mainstream media, please put on a note asking people to visit the channel on YouTube. Although it may feel like it at times, please remember you're not on your own. More and more people are waking up, and together we can win this war, but only together. Thank you for watching.